Good morning to everyone. Our first panel today is entitled Ukrainians Abroad, Immigration or Repatriation. And I hope that our discussion will give a strong and powerful start to the discussions of the second day of Central European Forum. First of all, I would like to introduce you our distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Łukasz Adamski, the Deputy Director of the Miroszewski Center from Warsaw, Poland here. Mr. Martin Rozumek, Consortium of Organizations Working with Migrants from Czech Republic. And Miroslava Mittelmanova from the Human Rights League from Slovakia. So our today's topic is very complex, and I would say it's even politically sensitive, at least in Ukraine. No one, including Ukrainian authorities, doesn't operate the exact figures of Ukrainian refugees abroad. We know that there are millions of them. The authorities do not have the strategy, the state policy on the issue. Theoretically, of course, Kyiv wants all of them to come back, but at the moment, it doesn't offer them anything except words. So there is undoubtedly much to discuss on the issue. And I would like to address my first question to all of our speakers. Could you please describe or characterize Ukrainian communities which had formed in your countries after the beginning of Russian full-scale invasion? Do these communities exist, or it's about hundreds of individual Ukrainians or Ukrainian families which basically do not form any community? If those communities exist in your countries, how united they are?
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for questions. They're good questions, since you mentioned that Ukrainian government does not know how many refugees are abroad. Polish government, Polish authorities do not know how many Ukrainians are actually in Poland. And it is really hard to count them in a situation where some people are commuting regularly between Poland and Ukraine. In the situation when many migrants then settled in Poland but work in Germany or resettle somewhere in the to other EU countries. So we can only broadly estimate that the Ukrainian community in Poland can be divided into three groups. First group is so-called old ethnic Ukrainian minority in Poland. Those are people who were born in south eastern Poland or somewhere else, but they were Polish citizens. They lived in Poland also in the time of Polish People's Republic. But this is quite small community, several dozen thousand people, probably 50,000-60,000. Then we have economic migrants and students who came to Poland in recent 2 decades, especially after 2014. Every Polish citizen could observe a rapid growth in the number of Ukrainian population in Poland. There was, as I said, people who worked in Poland, who learned in Poland, or who were so-called Zarobiczanie. And they were mainly from Western and Central Ukraine. 2 years ago, there was a specific research, aiming at counting how many Polish SIM cards are being connected regularly with Ukraine. And due to results, Polish researchers estimated that there were between 1 and 1.5 million Ukrainians in Poland. And now, after the war, there is the third group. The third group, refugees. It's mainly refugees from big cities, from big Ukrainian cities, and from South and East Ukraine. At the beginning, some people even thought that there are more than 3 million Ukrainians in Poland. Now, basically, we operate the number 1.5 million. So altogether, we have probably between 2 and 3 million Ukrainians in Poland, and it is absolutely visible. Every Polish citizen, every Pole had the opportunity to have individual contacts with Ukrainians and to learn something about Ukraine, not only through the transmission of media, but also through direct contacts. Conflict between those groups. The head of the Polish Association, head of the Association of Ukrainians in Poland, Związek Ukraińców w Polsce, so Piłka Ukraińców, Sojusz Ukraińców u Polski. I think 1 year ago turned attention asking why some Polish people do not have problems with accepting refugees. So Mr. Skórka turned attention that many Ukrainian migrants in Poland do not learn Polish and continue to use Russian language, even in Poland and even in the time of war. And you can imagine that it created a scandal, or at least a huge discussion, but not among Poles, but among Ukrainians in Poland, whether it is appropriate that the language is somehow a feature which can be assessed negatively in the time of war or not, whether Mr. Skórka was right or not. But definitely this is an example why that those conflicts exist. And perhaps here it would be my short answer for your question.
So good morning. Thank you for the invitation as well. I'm very happy that I can present some information coming from Slovakia. I do represent a society that is trying to help Ukrainians and other temporary protection holders in Slovakia. Our organization is based in 2 places, in Bratislava and in Košice, and we are providing the provision of legal aid on daily basis. So from the statistic information, the data as of 15th of October this year, from UNHCR data portal, we see that over 1,700,000 people crossed the Slovak and Ukrainian border. Out of these people, 109,000 people were or are still recorded as people with temporary protection. But our estimation is that probably 50 or 70,000 people just stayed in Slovakia, and the others left either to other EU countries or back to Ukraine, because temporary protection holders can travel. It's a different situation, for example, as have asylum holders or temporary protection, subsidiary protection holders. So it means when a Ukrainian decided to go back home for 3 months, he or she can go and then return back to Slovakia. So therefore, the estimation is around 50 to 70,000 people. We have also the statistics concerning the total number of people who applied for temporary protection or asylum, because also there are some people who decided to apply for asylum protection, but basically there is a difference that there is the length of the procedure, and also the possibility to work is different and much more longer. For example, asylum seeker can start to work after 6 months being in asylum procedure, comparable to a temporary protection holder who come to, for example, assistential center in Botova, in Bratislava. He or she applies for temporary protection, and let's say within 30 minutes, he can get the temporary protection. So this is one of the fastest administrative procedures in Slovakia. So therefore, majority of Ukrainians opt for temporary protection. And out of these, there is the number of 127,000 people in total. So basically, the community of Ukrainians is much more bigger comparing to, let's say, years of 2020. When I was checking the statistic information, how many people were working from Ukraine in Slovakia, it was around 90,000 people. out of 220,000 people of third country nationals. So we see that there is really a big there used to be a big community of Ukrainians also before the outbreak of the war. So basically, from my own experience, I can say we have now 40 employees within the Human Rights League, and half of them are Ukrainians. We have a great experience with them because they are highly skilled. For example, we were approached by the Slovak Bar Association last year, and they were asking if we are able to employ highly skilled Ukrainian attorneys that came to Slovakia. And we say, why not? We can try it. We can have a common language, English, because my generation, we do not speak much Russian anymore, but still we can understand each other, but it's not that much easy. But we said that we can try to use as a common language English, so we decided to employ 6 attorneys, and they're still working with us. Basically, after 1 year, they are able to speak Slovak. We train them in terms of asylum and migration law. And basically, they are very helpful for us because many Ukrainians, they are dealing with issues that have to be done in Ukraine, and we will not be able to do it without them. So basically, the community we have within the Human Rights League and also in Bratislava is I would say, is giving us another, let's say, approach to integration, because somehow we found out that it's no problem to integrate a big community of people. They have an advantage comparing to other third country nationals in that they're looking at us, looking as us. So it means, like, for example, if Syrians are coming to Slovakia, they have a worse position as, for example, Ukrainians. So I think their integration is very well. But still, I think most of them are seeing this as an opportunity, what means that they are telling to us they would like to learn the languages, they would like to learn the best practices, and then they would like to return back home. Most of them, they have this still, the will to return back home.
Good morning. On behalf of the Czech Republic and the Consortium of Migrant Assisting Organizations, I would like to thank for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm glad to be here. And then I would like to express my admiration to the courage of Ukrainian people. Basically, you've been fighting for not only for yourself but also for us. So we have a obligation, moral obligation and legal obligation to help your refugees, to provide decent reception to hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian refugees in the Czech Republic, and we try to do our best to do so. You said there are no precise numbers, so I think in the Czech Republic, I think we have good data. In general, according to the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, there are 6.3 million Ukrainian refugees abroad registered, which I think I would believe this number because they are registered as refugees. They are not immigrants who were there before. So they are registered as refugees in the European Union under the temporary protection scheme. In the Czech Republic, we granted altogether 550,000 temporary protection permits to Ukrainians since the beginning of the war. The current number, according to the statistics that was made, I think April, maybe May 2023, there are 360,000 holders of the temporary protection permit still present and living in the Czech Republic. And the number has been like this for the whole 2023. So I would simply say out of 550,000, those 200,000 probably continued to other countries. Some of them returned, but the number of 360,000 is stable and they integrate very, very well. It's admirable how fast and successful the integration is. 67% of Ukrainians already work, majority of them with full-time jobs, which is amazing. It's I would say a great success. The problem is that many of them work below their qualifications. More than 60% complain that they live below the poverty line, which is basically they work, but in large factories for very low salaries, which is a big problem. And interesting is the number of people who can afford to stay in a normal commercial rents. So it's basically increased from 22% last year to 49% this year, which is amazing because there is a housing crisis in the Czech Republic in every bigger city, and the Ukrainians do very well. And concerning the community, I think there are definitely more than 20 organizations, Ukrainian refugees and immigrants. We can't forget that there were 200,000 Ukrainian immigrants before the war started who lived in the Czech Republic for a long time. And so there are a number of NGOs and the community is represented, but I think we need their voice to be heard much stronger in the decision-making processes at the ministries, on the governmental level. So I was very glad that our Commissioner for Human Rights, Mrs. Laurenčíková, met recently a group of Ukrainian representatives to have their opinions and questions directly on the table. So I think this is something what we need because the number of immigrants or foreigners in the Czech Republic is already over 1 million, 10% of the population. So we need to include immigrants and refugees much better into public life and to let them speak for themselves and not represent them on behalf of us. So thank you.
I believe all of you have already started answering my second question. I wanted to ask you about how does social environment in your countries interact with Ukrainians? And do you see the dynamics of this interaction? I would specifically address this question to our speakers from Slovakia and Poland. The parliamentary elections that had recently been held in your countries had the issues of Ukrainian refugees, of Ukrainian war, as one of the, can't say main, but major topics of electoral campaigns. So if you read Ukrainian yellow press, you will notice that a lot of people think that local people, Slovaks, Poles, inhabitants of other European countries, have worse and worse opinion about Ukrainians. Do you see that on the ground, and how the attitude of the societies in your countries change towards Ukrainians? Your people, the people in your countries, are they tired of Ukrainians?
Well, let's start at the last. Oh, your question is really complex. One thing is the attitudes of Polish people towards war, support of the war. Another thing is support for accepting Ukrainian refugees. And third thing is the, let's say, impression or from interactions with Ukrainian already residing in Poland. So as to the support for the war, then there's no significant change. So Polish people believe that Ukraine is a victim of unprovoked aggression, and it's in the Polish national interest to support further Ukraine. Although compared to the situation from the previous year, the percentage of those people who believe that Russia does not pose an imminent threat for Poland increased. As to the question of whether Poland should accept migrants from refugees from Ukraine, then there's a huge difference. Namely, at the beginning of the war, there was somehow like humanitarian uprising. Almost all Polish people all the time news information about the war. Almost 90%, as far as I remember, were in favor of accepting Ukrainian refugees, and more than two-thirds helped somehow personally to the Ukrainians, either by giving them their houses, apartments, or by delivering humanitarian aid, or by money. But anyway, there was a huge wave of support. So I call it humanitarian uprising, since it showed the best Polish tradition of solidarity. But now, after the war is so long, then the percentage of Polish people who think that Polish state should accept refugees really decreased. Current data from the October is that 57% of Poles are for accepting Ukrainian refugees. 57. Although those people who were asked whether Poland should accept or not were given information that it's about people whose life is in danger. Not only, actually, there's no really secure place in Ukraine, but you can probably agree that the situation in Lviv and in Kiev is incomparably better than the situation in Kharkiv, in Kherson. So in regions where, as I said, probably at least half of refugees came to Poland. But despite that, 57% of Polish people say that only 57 that they are in favor of thorough accepting Ukrainian refugees. And why? One factor is, of course, in the general impact of Polish-Ukrainian relations, the atmosphere of Polish-Ukrainian relations. This research, this survey was conducted in October, so 3 weeks basically after the statement of President Zelensky in the General Assembly of the United Nations, which really provoked a huge outrage and huge emotions in Poland. Yeah, so, Poland is a actor in the Russian theater. So it definitely it impacted somehow this trend, since in 2 months the percentage of people who were in favor of accepting Ukraine dropped by 8 percentage points. But another thing is that there were some misunderstanding, as I told you already, about this problem between old Ukrainian community in Poland and even old migrants and refugees from south and eastern parts of Ukraine. But you can also imagine that there are certain cultural codes which divide, by the way, Ukrainian society to some extent, but also they are a factor which divides Polish people and many Ukrainians. That's, let's say, perhaps small things or bigger things, as I said, using Russian language. Most people in Poland do not understand why people who fled because of Putin's war, because Putin wanted to Russify Ukraine, spoke Russian language. So me and many my colleagues may explain, but I have a problem to explain even to my own family in Poland. Because Polish people think about nation in very cultural categories. A community of language, of culture, and language is a really distinctive feature. But also some other, let's say, cultural differences perhaps contributed to this decline. But generally, and this is my last here intervention, generally, when you look at what Ukrainian migrants say about their stay in Poland, so absolutely most of them are, let's say, thankful to the Polish state and to the Polish people. They don't complain. Perhaps even 50% consider staying in Poland after cessation of hostilities. So they do not complain about discrimination and all other things which usually emerge in countries where such a huge wave of migrants come in a relatively short period of time. So this is, let's say, optimistic forecast.
In terms of migration, I would say in Poland, maybe Agnieszka Holland and her movie Border influenced the voting of people. Don't you think so? Because I've seen that many people from media were responding to this movie, that it was very strong for people to see what was the situation and what was actually like how the government was acting towards the migrants. So maybe not Ukrainians were the topic, but
Sophie,
yeah.
Polish people usually, I don't say about elites, but usually they have different attitudes towards Ukrainians and Belarusians, and different to the Christians, and different to the Muslims from the Middle East. So most Polish people do not want to accept those migrants from the Middle East because of huge cultural differences and because they don't want to be harassed by Lukashenko regime.
Yes, but maybe it influenced how the government acted, that there was this pushback back to Belarus and those people were not admitted to the territory. Wasn't it that? No, don't think so? Because I've heard that many people were surprised at what happened with those group of people that was stuck at the border and was not able to get inside the Poland or return back to Belarus, and Belarus, they were stuck in that area and region.
This was, of course, a question which was heavily debated among elites, among journalists. Also, Polish people were divided what to do with those migrants from Middle East, but my thesis is that there was no clear connection between border crisis and migrants from the Middle East and the attitude towards Ukrainian refugees. And it's a different thing.
So in Slovakia, we thought that the support of Ukrainians will be a topic of political campaigns. But in summer, we saw that there were increasing numbers of other third country nationals, what we call like mixed movements, people coming mainly from Syria, Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Hungary, and to Slovakia and heading to Germany. And the political party that actually won the elections were trying to focus on this category of people. So the Ukrainians were actually avoided. But yes, there is a discussion because half of the nation is pro-Putin still. And it's a big discussion how it is possible that people still do, for mainly those who are living in the eastern part of Slovakia, very close to the border. They saw people crossing the border last year and trying to get help in Slovakia. And we were actually very much surprised about the number of people who are like pro-Putin still in our country. So basically, the support of Ukrainians in Slovakia is still going on. We have new government they have been there just for 1 week. So there is a change within the Bureau of Border and Foreigners Police and the Presidium of Police Force. We have seen last year the different attitude of the police officers towards foreigners in general. I think it's a very much political approach how we can act towards foreigners, but basically we thought that it's already on the way how we wanted to have it, because usually migrants in Slovakia, they are not welcomed. But as I said already, Ukrainians, they have this advantage that they're already like part of our society. So maybe it will be harder for them to return because they might feel somewhere welcome. But still, I think, as I said, most of them, they would like to return back home. But still, if they will be successful in Slovakia or other EU countries, there is also high possibility that some of them will stay and will integrate into the societies. We have successfully, for example, refugee and women-led organizations that are led by Ukrainian women. In Slovakia, the biggest one is Sme Spolu. We are together, and they are, I would say, trying also to help the community They are also having their own school. So, for example, Ukrainian children can go to their school in the afternoon and do the online schooling, or basically Ukrainian teachers that are present in Slovakia, they are dedicating their time to them. The education or access to education in Slovakia is one of the, I would say, 5 topics that we are focused on, because I don't know if you're aware, but there is no compulsory education for Ukrainian children in Slovakia. It means that there is still a big group of children that are not attending the school. Some of them are doing the online schooling, but we see children around the age of 10, for example, 11 and 12, they are not attending either Ukrainian school or Slovak school. Their mothers are working, so we are trying to also some kind of influence the Ministry of Education that school is not to see the topic from broader perspective, that school is not just a place for education but also protection. We have a big discussion on protection on sexual abuse and exploitation in Slovakia, mainly towards Ukrainian young women, teenagers, because it's really they are in a vulnerable situation, and we see that if they are alone at the age of, let's say, 10, 11, 12, it's really not working towards their good upbringing. So basically, we are trying to discuss, there are different opinions on that, because some Ukrainian parents, they don't want their children to be in Slovak schools because of bullying, because of opinions of teachers, and because of not that basically we are not prepared to have those children still within Slovak schools. It's different, maybe like in Czech Republic, you are much more maybe better prepared for this. So there are many discussions how to more integrate them, mainly in the area of schooling. But in the other areas, I would say there are many organizations that started to provide their services. We have international organizations that either return back to Slovakia as UNHCR, because they closed their office in 2012 because of a low number of asylum seekers, but they returned back, and also they brought funds that can be used by also Ukrainian organizations. So they are trying to also help as they can. I see the international organizations are much more active, for example, to the state and EU institutions, because we are not able to use EU funds for Ukrainian topics still. It's a big problem, but UNHCR, UNICEF, and other international organizations are supporting. So basically, I think the environment is somehow prepared and already is doing many things for Ukrainians. So they might feel be welcome in Slovakia. But still, there are many questions, as I already said.
Briefly, the Czech Republic, the number or percentage of people in favor of reception of Ukrainian refugees dropped from 75% last year to 57% this year. But I think it's no reflection of the bad behavior of Ukrainians at all. It's more a result of the never-ending inflation and the economic crisis, and the prices of everything really increased. So people often blame everybody else than themselves for this problem. And I think in my opinion, it's still incredibly high. If I remember the Syrian refugee crisis, which in my eyes pretty similar in terms of numbers, pretty similar. Then I would say the percentage of people willing to accept Syrian refugees would be in the Czech Republic probably 2%. And if we talk about Palestinians, it will be 0. So still, I think that in our, let's say, xenophobic society, the support of 57% is still really, really high, and I would say positive.
Last December, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said that, I will quote him, millions of Ukrainians who fled Ukraine and found a safe place abroad must not become refugees. We have to save them as a part of Ukrainian society. End of a quote. I think it's a very complex issue. A survey carried out by Ukrainian ratings sociology group this spring showed that around 75% of Ukrainians abroad regularly consume political news from Ukraine, and just about 24% of them are interested in the news from the country where they actually live. For me, it's a proof that these people mostly still remain part of Ukrainian society. But on the other hand, there is a widely spread opinion in Ukraine and in foreign media that the real aim of European governments, due to economic and demographic problems they face, is to keep Ukrainians in their new homelands, I mean in European countries, not to just give them safe place while there is a war in their countries, but to keep them. So do you see signs of such strategies in your countries? And do you see signs of potential conflict between Ukraine's aims and the aims of European countries? If we talk about future of Ukrainian refugees, let's start from Czech Republic. You have a stable
If I may start,
election.
our migration and asylum policy have been always very restrictive for ages. So definitely there is no strategy to keep the Ukrainians forever on the side of the Czech ministries. My dream would be the opposite. I think they should have a free choice to stay or to return, and we should support this decision, whatever the decision is. But definitely there is no plan of the Czech government to keep everybody in the Czech Republic, because we have been always restrictive, and I'm in the Czech government, and there are plans for voluntary return programs, and the politicians always insist that the Ukrainian friends want their people to go back. But I think at the end the people themselves will decide, and we will definitely support them in the decision. You are right, the demographic prognosis in the Czech Republic is really bad. I think the businesses will be strongly lobbying for keeping Ukrainians at the workplaces forever. But it's not a strategy of the government so far.
There is no official strategy of the Slovak government how to integrate the Ukrainian people. So basically we have a contingency plan what to do when there will be a new influx of people coming from Ukraine, but there is no strategy on this. So basically you don't have to be afraid. And I think there is still big connection between Ukraine and people who are abroad, because I think social media and other online schooling, for example, there are still very big ties with the original country. So basically, I think we see that there are many professionals, for example, doctors, nurses in Slovakia, that can be also kind of used within our system, but we were not prepared for it. So still there are discussions how to do it, how to what kind of approach should be applied. But basically the strategy does not exist. So I think basically Ukrainians they should either have their personal connections with maybe husbands and wives in the future, and because of that they will stay. But I think, as I said, we see from our colleagues that they would like to help the country as much as they can. And mainly for men that are also in Slovakia and they have these exemptions to cross the border, they still think that they have to do something for their country, because I think they feel that majority of their friends and family members stay in Ukraine and are fighting, and they would like to also fight somehow another way. So many of them, for example, are teaching or studying English in order to then work for some companies, I would say maybe from army industry, to help. And I see that there is a very high willingness to help still Ukraine.
I also haven't heard of long-term official strategy of the Polish state what to do with migrants, with Ukrainians in Poland. I can share with you with some unofficial mind exchanges that there's a certain problem between Poland and Ukraine, between the interests of Poland and Ukraine. It's definitely in the interest of Ukraine that those people will come back, will return, and will be deployed to recover the country after the war, to speed up economic growth, to fill demographic gaps. So those people, Ukrainian people, are needed in Ukraine. When you look at on that from the Polish perspective, then on the one hand, yes, Poland needs a stable and prosperous Ukraine. So actually, in the long-term interest of the Polish state is also that those people will return. On the other hand, in the short and medium term, Polish economy needs those people, and I'm not sure whether Polish government, independent of what government it would be, but that future Polish government will encourage Ukrainian to leave Poland. Rather, they will probably encourage them to stay. Even now, there are debates why actually we are losing Ukrainians, and some of them prefer to work in Germany. So this is here one possible problem. The second problem is actually how to integrate them, since Ukrainian people, Ukrainian and Polish language are so close that it usually takes several months for Ukrainians to speak fluently Polish, or at least understand and to be able to communicate in the Polish language. So actually, to some extent, it is in the interest of the Polish state to integrate and even to culturally accommodate those people. Although it's unpopular what I say, but the cultural homogeneity is something which Polish people prefer. But of course, it is not in the interest of Ukrainian community in Poland to be Polonized, in 1 or 2 generations. And my last remark, but it would be some follow-up of my previous intervention, but I wanted to tell you one interesting observation. Do you know what is the social group in Poland, which, according to various studies, is, let's say, most skeptical about accepting Ukrainian refugees? A social group. It is young women. Young women, very often with very progressive left-mind views. The answer is quite simple. With the competition on let's say, matrimonial market. On the other hand, among Polish nationalists, even in the party which is usually currently labeled in Ukraine as very anti-Ukrainian, so Confederation, there are people who, let's say, change their minds about Ukraine in a very positive way. Also because of this, let's say, personal interaction with young Ukrainian women who became their partners to some extent. So the reality of Polish-Ukrainian relations with those nations which are so close is, let's say, different, I think, with from the pattern of classical, let's say, discussion about accepting migrants, refugees from other countries, other regions from the Middle East or not. Here is a, let's say, specific case.
I just want to add the aging out of European societies is a reality. And I think whether we like it or not, there is a competition for young, educated immigrants to come. Germany, they approved a law in June to accept 2 million newcomers. So I think it will be very difficult if we are too restrictive in our countries. And then there is one country like Germany or any other country offering really good conditions, then I think the people will not return because they are needed and they are highly preferred. They are young, educated, Christian, white. So I think the ideal immigrant for European aging societies. So I'm not very much optimistic vis-a-vis returns. And also when I look at the map, from which places the Ukrainian refugees came to the Czech Republic, they are mainly from east and south. So I would say pretty much destroyed areas, and they are not from west.
They don't know where to return to.
Yeah. So I'm not very much optimistic when it comes to returns. I think the people will rather stay.
Of course.
Maybe I will also add one thing, that there is one legal discussion about the status of temporary protection holders after 4th of March 2025. Internally, the Slovak police, they are trying to discuss with the experts that maybe we can automatically transform the temporary protection holders, those who are, for example, studying, that they can receive a residence permit, temporary protection based on the purpose of education, those who are employed based on purpose of employment, or those who are, let's say, I don't know, doing other things based on that purpose. So basically, there is already such a discussion. And I think on the European level, there's also a debate if we are going to create a new kind of residence permit for those people. So it will enable them to also stay until 2025. But we see also mainly within the Ministry of Interior that there is also already, they already started to think about it.
I think the answer should be, let's accept Ukraine into a European Union as fast as possible, and everybody will benefit. You will get a lot of subsidies, and your people will travel back and forth freely, and we have win-win-win situation.
We could end our discussion on this, but we will not. I would like to ask you about the ways Ukrainian refugees, Ukrainian communities, Ukrainians in your countries change or influence your societies. Do you see how they do it? And I'm a political journalist, so I may ask to excuse for using irrelevant analogies, but I know that there was until very recently constant representation of German minority in Polish parliament. There are rather strong Hungarian parties in Slovakia. Can you imagine the existence of active and influential Ukrainian parties in your countries in some foreseeable future? And what kind of parties that would be? Conservative, liberal, ultra-liberal? But don't limit yourself to political aspect of the issue. How do Ukrainians change your society if they do?
This question is really hard to answer. Definitely, I see prospects of emerging Ukrainian political group in the Polish parliament. I'm not sure whether Polish system will lead to the emergence of, let's say, of Ukrainian party in Poland. At least it's not excluded, but at least there are no signs currently. And yeah, there were a representative of German minority in the Polish parliament, but now Polish people decided not to vote for deputies who all the time agreed with the government. So those 1 or 2 members of German minority in the parliament, they actually had no strong political views, but they all the time supported government, whatever government existed in Poland. So there's a possibility that in the future, several years, when much more Ukrainian will receive Polish citizenship, that they will be in the Polish parliament. Like in the 1990s, there were some representatives of Ukrainian minorities, old Ukrainian minority in the Polish parliament. Of course, they will also affect, to some extent, public debates. We have already had one debate whether in the Polish language we should use the expression w Ukrainie or na Ukrainie. Traditionally in the Polish language it was na Ukrainie, like na Białorusi, na Słowacji, na Węgrzech, yeah? Na Łotwie, na Litwie, so it referred now to all neighboring nations, almost all. But Ukrainians came to Poland and they started to perceive this na Ukrainie through the prism of Ukrainian language and Russian-Ukrainian interaction. And then certain Polish activists and later journalists changed their language. Of course, it also provoked protests from more conservative parts of Polish intellectual life. But this is the example how the inflow of Ukrainians to Poland changed. For example, Poland. Politically, of course, it is not excluded. But now they are mostly the Ukrainians living in Poland do not have Polish citizenship. So it is rather like question which can be debated in several years.
To be active in politics and basically have the voice, I think it's already what you mentioned. It's very necessary to have a Slovak citizenship or to be recognized as a minority within the society. Taking into account the number of Ukrainians in Slovakia, I think they already can be recognized as a minority. And taking account the legislature on state citizenship, third country national can be granted Slovak citizenship after being 8 years on permanent residence permit. Ukrainians are getting tolerated stay. It's a different residence comparing, for example, to those who are granted asylum or subsidiary protection. If they would like to apply for citizenship, they had to be at least 10 years in Slovakia. So basically, and in that time to have a permanent residence permit. So basically, we can talk about that in a horizon of maybe 5 to 10 years, because the Act on Citizenship also regulates some exemptions, and those are only for asylum holders or subsidiary protection holders, and then can get citizenship after 5 years being in Slovakia. So maybe temporary protection can also be part of some legislation change in the future. And if the government will see that these people can contribute much more to the society and they would like to have them in society, they can also change this act, and it will enable Ukrainians to get the citizenship sooner. I see from the community what I already said, those mainly women and women refugee-led organizations. They're very powerful, and I think their voice is already heard in Slovakia. They're able to communicate their opinions and also already some recommendations to the government. So basically, I think we are on the way that their voice would be heard more and more in Slovakia because of those powerful Ukrainians, women mainly.
How do Ukrainian refugees change Czech society? I would say definitely positively. This is the first time that we were able to show compassion towards refugees. The first time we admitted large number of refugees. We exported refugees during our history, and this is the first time that we suddenly, instead of having 1,000 newcomers, 350, 360, which is incredible. And I would never say that the Czechs would be able to change their attitude so quickly and to be so open towards Ukrainian refugees. And when it comes to the political engagement, almost impossible, because the law does not allow for foreigners to be a member of political party, to be elected anywhere, to vote in elections. So only the EU nationals are allowed to vote in regional and municipal elections. But you may live as a Vietnamese immigrant for 20 years in the Czech Republic and you are never able to vote anywhere. Just you pay taxes. So the system is not opening in this way, but I hope it will open one day in my life. Yeah.
I think maybe it's my final question, but it's pretty obvious, and researches carried out by Ukrainian sociologists prove that the basic value that can influence the decision of Ukrainian refugees to come back home, this value is safety. Of course, nobody, including Ukrainian authorities, can guarantee that Russia will stop bombing and shelling Ukrainian citizen villages, including those situated far from the front line, even after the war ends, formally. But do you think there is anything Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian state, Ukrainian civil society can do now to ensure that as many Ukrainians who are currently abroad as possible will come back home at some moment?
Yeah, it's not a convenient task to formulate proposals for the Ukrainian government.
But maybe you from abroad, from the outside, will see better.
My not entirely from the outside, since I spent half of my life in Kiev, out in Warsaw, because of my Ukrainian wife.
That's not a justification.
Yeah, but I'm part both of Ukrainian and Polish society. So, but definitely, Ukraine needs rapid economic growth, and rapid economic growth will be possible if, firstly, there will be a foreign investment. And it depends on the general security situation. So it's rather hard now to for the Ukrainian government to take such measures. On the other hand, this rapid economic growth depends on the corruption perception and on the belief that Ukraine, after the war, will be new Ukraine, which would develop based on other values and on other models as a future member of the EU. And if this belief will be widespread, that Ukraine is a country with huge opportunities, and it's better, let's say, to take some risk, but let's say live in their own country than to have a perspective to spend the whole life in a country which can be even very close, like Poland, but not a whole country. Then this belief would, I would say, attract really many Ukrainians again to Ukraine. But this belief must be solidly founded. So there no corruption in the recruitment process, no corruption in business, and visible signs that something fundamentally changed in Ukraine. And I do believe that it will be possible, although hard, especially during the war. But this is simply, without that, probably it will be no enough incentives to incline many Ukrainians to come back. In Poland, 50% would like to stay in Poland further. How to change? They might not simply, they need incentives.
I think from my perspective and from the dialogue with people that I work with, I see that they still see the opportunity to be abroad, to gain the education, also information, and be able to use them when they will be back in home. But basically, I do remember one thing that I was communicating with one of our employee, and then we were doing this face-to-face HR talks, and we got the feedback that they will remember for sure how we are dealing on human level within our office, because basically they said that the relations and in their previous works, they were, for example, doing for prosecutor's office or attorney's office, were not on that level that we have in our office. So I think they can also maybe return back because they said that they were thinking totally different, and they are seeing different approach in Slovakia. So from this human perspective, maybe because we are a human rights organization, that we also focus on this and would like to have a good relations, and we are trying to focus on how people are feeling, and if everything is okay, we are trying to train people and also to have a discussion with the psychologists, coaches, and other people who can enable to our employees to feel better at work. But they said that they see this as something that we'll remember when they will return back, how we communicate each other, how we are acting and dealing and treating in this on human level. So basically, I think if they will return, they will be empowered, and your country, and you deserve it, will be on that level that you would like to have your country on.
I don't have the answer on your question. I think maybe a kind of Marshall Plan or massive investment in jobs and housing can help, but otherwise I have no answer. Sorry.
I believe we have some minutes to give the floor to our audience. Maybe Anyone? Oh, you have a question? If someone can give us the assistance with the microphone.
That's what we did. I have the reference to the cost of foreign relations. I'd like to have a short question to Martin and Miroslav. Do you happen to have data or some kind of sociological surveys about the willingness of the Ukrainian refugees to stay? As Lucas said that in Poland it's about 50%. How is it in the Slovak and the Czech case? Thank you.
I think we are on the same level. I don't remember that there was such a survey in Slovakia, but there were some of them done by the UNHCR. So basically, I think we can find it out later on, but I do not remember the exact number. But still, there are some, people who would like to return, and some would like to stay. But I can look on that in more detail after the session and to tell you more about that. But basically, I think still the majority would like to return back home.
And do you think the dynamic of the figures, like the first weeks and months of the war, more people wanted to return, and now?
When I was volunteering at the border the very first days of the war or in full scale invasion, and when we were talking to people and we were trying to instruct them where to go and what to do, they were having just the small bags or backpacks, and they were telling us we'll return back home in few days, in few weeks, and I thought like, oh my goodness, it will not be like that for sure. But I remember they were prepared to return back in few days. But then they started to realize last year, maybe in summer, that probably they will not return so soon. Some of them, for example, were trying to find the schools for children because they were not able to return because their home did not exist anymore. So yeah, it was very dynamic, mainly last year. So people were changing, like, yes, we will return, to no, we will stay, but maybe for half a year, and then we will see how the situation will change. But usually in a war crisis, it is like that. The longer you are staying somewhere, it's probably a higher probability that you will stay there for a longer period of time, and just some people will return. But from my personal perspective, I see that still many people would like to return, and though highly skilled, they would like to help your country, they would like to build, and they would like to be part of this story.
In the Czech Republic, I found the numbers, and they are very interesting. Currently, 52% of Ukrainian refugees would like to stay. And at the beginning, it was 46%. So it increased, but not dramatically. Yes, and I think Mirka is right. The longer the war takes, the higher is the probability of people to stay. They found jobs, people get enrolled, kids get enrolled to schools. So I think that make them to stay probably forever, 52%. Yeah.
In Slovakia, it's 56%.
If you have more questions from the audience. So if we don't, I believe we can save. Oh, we have. Sorry.
So just a little question: How do you mitigate some particularities of integration Ukrainian children and Ukrainian young people to the educational system of your countries?
Already mentioned that we do not have this compulsory education in Slovakia, but there is a decision of the previous Minister of Education that as of 1st of September 2024, there will be compulsory education for Ukrainian children. So we have this date, and we have to now prepare the system, mainly teachers and also pupils within the schools to be open for new students within their schools. I think it will be little bit difficult, but I think UNICEF and also UNHCR and other experts are willing to help the Slovak government and mainly the ministry. So hopefully we'll be able to do it, and we will not harm Ukrainian children within our schools. But many of them are already there. So basically, it's not maybe the question of, let's say now 2,000 children that still would like to go to schools, but there are no places for them.
In the Czech Republic, we do have compulsory primary education, so all the Ukrainian children who want to, or the parents who want their children to be at Czech schools have the possibility to be there. And there are some exceptions in Prague. We can find groups of only Ukrainian classes, but there are not many, and we are not supporting it. We want the Ukrainian children to be with our kids to learn the Czech language as soon as possible. But we do have a big problem at secondary school because there are too many children for too few schools in general. So it's very difficult for Czech children to find a good secondary school. And for Ukrainian children, it's much worse. So we see a lot of youngsters in the age 15 to 17 who do not get to schools and work somewhere instead of visiting schools. And I think that's a big challenge, and we are trying to address it to make the exams somehow easier for Ukrainian children, because the Czech language exam to get into the secondary school is pretty difficult. So we hope it will be solved soon, but the problem at the secondary school definitely exists.
As far as I remember, 60%, 60% or 70% children of Ukrainian refugees attend Polish schools, and 30 or 40, I think 30, have remote education from Ukraine. This is tolerated. Most children attend Polish schools. Minority, but significant minority, have remote lessons from Ukraine. And in Polish schools, there are additional trainings, lessons for Ukrainians, the Polish language. Apart from that, they simply attend Polish lessons conducted in the Polish language, as or other children in Poland. But as I said, you know that this proximity, this closeness between Polish and Ukrainian is significant. So it's perhaps easier for Ukrainians to attend Polish school than Czech.
I will have to thank my speakers for this extremely interesting discussion and say goodbye to us all.